If you guys didn't know, for the 5th anniversary, we will all be getting a free Moonlight 5-star from a selection of 7 units featured in the Fallen Lands lore in Epic 7. Basically, you can choose one of these 7 units that you see on your screen here: Remnant Violet, Conqueror Lilias, Meteor Kawerik, Sylvan Sage Vivian, Commander Pavel, Death Dealer Ray, or Astromancer Elena, and be able to unlock that unit and use them pretty much like a unit that you pulled for. A lot of people have been asking me what unit should they actually pull for, so I decided to actually make a pretty simple tier list for you guys, and I'll be talking about every unit in depth and why you guys want to pull for those units. I'm not going to really go over all the skills or builds in this video because then the video will be super long. Once the selector time comes around, which should be in a couple of weeks, then I'll release a more in-depth build video for all of these units that are very good, and you guys can see how I actually build them on my account. So, not surprising to people that have been playing for a while, you're going to see that we have the S tier being filled out by only one unit, Conqueror Lilias. Now, I was kind of debating, do I put Meteor Kawerik with Conqueror Lilias like this, but I kind of decided that I need Conqueror Lilias in her own separate tier above everyone else, because of how amazing she is for both PvP and PvE. She is a staple in Guild Wars defense. You'll see her in pretty much every single defense team in higher ranks. So if you do have Conqueror Lilias, you'll be able to get shields or wins on defense a lot more frequently, so you'll be able to get more Mystic Medals. And in World Arena, she is highly contested. You'll see her picked or banned every single game. She is consistently a first pick in a lot of drafts. So yeah, she's very good for Guild Wars defense, even Guild Wars offense as well. And she will be amazing for World Arena. She's kind of a unit that you need to have to be able to play RTA or World Arena at a high level. Because if you don't have her, sure, you'll be able to get to like Challenger or maybe Champion, but if you're trying to push for Emperor or Legend, without Conqueror Lilias, it's very hard because you'll have to end up wasting a ban on her every single game, which is going to be very hindering in your drafting capabilities. So yeah, very powerful in PvP, still one of the best units in the game for PvP, definitely a top 5 unit for PvP still. And for PvE, she's also insane. She's very good for Ancient Inheritance, which is running right now. It will be over by the time the Moonlight Selector or Blessing comes through though, so you won't really have to worry about that for a while. But she's very good for Holo Trials. And in the past, Holo Trials wasn't really an area of content that you needed to pull units for or worry too much about. But now, because we have so many different exclusive equipments for so many units, and even the newer exclusive equipments coming out have 2 or even 3 viable options for the effects now, instead of just having one staple pick for every single unit that was kind of like how it was in the past. It's going to make it so that the currency for Holo Trials is actually way more important now, because they're releasing, Smilegate is releasing exclusive equipments at a very fast pace compared to before, meaning that it's really important to actually able to farm Holo Trials pretty quickly. So Conqueror Lilias is very good because she can 2-man a lot of bosses. You just put Conqueror Lilias in with another unit, turn auto battle on, turn skills off, and you'll basically be able to get SS, SSS just on auto with 2 units very easily without too crazy of gear, and with the Holo Trials artifact. And she will get you a lot of the Holo Trials currency. I think they call it Eye of Gazes, right? So yeah, extremely good for PvE there as well. And she's also going to be good in any area of content where you want a lot of dual attacks. She's very good with dual attack comps as well because her S1 is a forced dual attack. So yeah, extremely good. That is why I think Conqueror Lilias is the best pick. If you guys don't have her, you definitely want her. She is going to be harder to build than some of the units here because she does require to be super fast. But if you do put her on your best speed gear, you will notice that she will carry you through a lot of the hard content, especially for PvP. Next up in the A tier, we also have a standalone unit. This is going to be Meteor Kawerik. So Meteor Kawerik, pretty similar to Conqueror Lilias in the fact that he is one of the best PvP units in the game. Probably top 5 as well, I'd say. He has insane cleansing with his S3. He can basically be built on 0 effect resist because his S3 will auto reduce buff or debuff durations on him by 1 turn when it is his turn if his skill's up, making it so that even if he's stunned or silenced, if you do have only a 1 turn duration on that stun or silence, he can actually auto cleanse himself at the start of his turn and then S3 and cleanse his entire team. He also has that attack buff and immunity buff, which are very powerful. And he also has an S2 that hits like a truck. He has a barrier, decreased attack. He also has a lot of CR pushing for himself and an ally with his S1, making him so powerful. He also has a decent CR push with his S1, and he also does a decent amount of damage because he is a warrior, and warrior's base stats are also all very high. It's also why Conqueror Lilias is very good, because she is a warrior, her innate tankiness is pretty high, making it so that it's hard to take her down while she's cycling. Similar to Meteor Kawerik, you can be seeing him on like 30k HP builds, and he still is able to cleanse your team very effectively, and he does a ton of damage and hits like a truck actually, because he scales with health. He is a lot easier to build than Conqueror Lilias because all he needs is speed and health and like some defense. That's pretty much it, and you're pretty much good to go. Whereas Conqueror Lilias needs a lot more speed, right? Meteor Kaweriks usually are around like 240, 250 speed. You can even use them at like 220 and it's fine. Conqueror Lilias you're going to see at like 270, 280, pushing 300 sometimes, 310 even for the very high-end players, making it so that she's a lot harder to build. However, I think Meteor Kawerik is going to be less useful than Conqueror Lilias because Conqueror Lilias is going to be better on Guild Wars defense, where Meteor Kawerik cannot be used there, and Conqueror Lilias will also be very good in PvE, whereas Meteor Kawerik is not really used anywhere except for some Abyss challenge floors and for like one boss and Nightmare raids sometimes. So yeah, it's still very strong. Top 5 unit in PvP. It's just that Conqueror Lilias is just so broken that you definitely want to actually pull for her if you don't, or not pull for her, but summon her from the Moonlight Blessing Selector if you actually don't have her. Now we're dropping into the B tier, guys. So these units, honestly, you don't really want to go for them if you don't have Meteor Kawerik or Conqueror Lilias. If you have Conqueror Lilias already, I definitely get Meteor Kawerik. If you're missing both, you would take Conqueror Lilias. If you have both of these units, then you should consider the B tier units because these units are going to be a lot weaker than Meteor Kawerik and Conqueror Lilias. But they're still going to be usable and actually still pretty strong in a lot of situations, and we'll talk about that. So first we have Death Dealer Ray, or DDR as some people call him. Very good against health scaling bruisers because he has so many injuries from his venoms. Also very powerful with the unit known as Sharoon because she can also apply venoms and allow Death Dealer Ray to detonate them. And he's just very good into slow comps. If you like to play a control style and very slow and very tanky and not really worrying too much about speed, then Death Dealer Ray is very good. The only thing is you're only ever going to use him in World Arena. However, he is very good there, so for that reason he's in the B tier. For PvE, not used at all. Venom is very terrible in PvE, and in Guild Wars offense and defense he's way too slow, and Arena offense and defense he's way too slow, and just on defense teams in general he gets countered pretty hard by a lot of units because he's very debuff oriented. So yeah, relegated to World Arena only, but he is very good there. Sylvan Sage Vivian, pretty decent damage dealer. Has a lot of mitigation for herself. She hits very hard with AoE. She's pretty decent into Spectre Tenebria. She's good into like APOC Ravis and stuff like that. You're not going to really use her in PvE either, except for like some Abyss challenge floors if I recall correctly. But in PvP, especially World Arena, she's a solid damage dealing pick. It's just that she's not really like a standout unit. She's not going to ever be like a must ban unit or pressure the enemy to feel like they have to ban her because sure, she is strong, sure, she has that damage reduction, sure, she has critical hit damage for her team and AoE damage, but she is not going to be a unit that is going to be like, wow, she can solo carry games except for like very specific situations. So for that, we have her in the B tier. Commander Pavel, this is going to be for cleave players only. I'm going to be honest with Commander Pavel, if you guys only cleave and strictly cleave, he's going to be S tier for sure. Probably after Conqueror Lilias still, but cleavers don't really use Meteor Kawerik or actually any of the other units on this list. Conqueror Lilias they will use because she's still getting cleave, honestly. But Commander Pavel is going to be extremely good for cleave if you can activate his passive with his S2. So if you guys like cleaving, Commander Pavel will be S tier. But in general, I'm going to put him in B tier because, yeah, I don't really know the percentage of players that only cleave, but I don't think it's that high. And just a general guideline is, you know, cleaving is going to be for accounts that roll very well with speed. And to be honest, there's a lot of answers to cleave now, so it's pretty hard to actually cleave consistently. But in the right scenarios, and if you actually outdraft your opponent, you can get free wins easily with Commander Pavel, so he's in the B tier. Only used in World Arena though, same thing as Sylvan Sage Vivian and basically DDR. You're not going to use them anywhere else. I think Sylvan Sage Vivian can be used on Guild Wars defense, if I believe correctly, but not to an extent where she's going to be like super meta there. But Commander Pavel only using World Arena for cleavers. So now talking about Remnant Violet. So Remnant Violet's very hard to rank because you can't really rank him anywhere but like average or below average because he's extremely RNG reliant. He's basically, in my opinion, a worse Savior Aiden because of the fact that he doesn't have any team buffing mechanics, whereas Savior Aiden has that invulnerability. She has a strip, right? And she is just very, very strong and also a lot easier to build because you don't really need her on lifesteal set. She has built-in lifesteal. But Remnant Violet only has dodge for himself, and he only has like a single target nuke that can one-shot all units, right? So yeah, he is very reliant on dodging, and he can get pretty much shut down by a lot of units. I know Aiden can as well, but Aiden can be built a lot more tankier because she doesn't need that lifesteal set, and be built on more damage because she can also be run on destruction. But Remnant Violet is going to be a unit where if he pops off, he's going to feel like he's like SSS like up here, right? But if he doesn't dodge enough, like he's going to go from like S tier to like F tier. So very hard to rely on him. That's why I think it's a B tier unit. I think things that are unreliable, I'm going to put them in the B tier, especially units that don't really provide anything for the team. So you guys think about like ML Landy, sure, ML Landy is also a unit. She's not available from the selector, but just using her as an example, she does have a lot of RNG built in with her counter, her anti-crit, and also her Elbrus. But the thing is, she has that critical hit resistance buff at the start of battle, which makes her super strong. That buff alone makes her very powerful. So yeah, Remnant Violet doesn't do anything for this team, so B tier. I know I talked a lot about him, but I really love Remnant Violet, don't get me wrong, but it's just kind of sad because sometimes he just doesn't do anything and then you hate him. So yeah, next we have the C tier unit. Basically standalone unit again, Astromancer Elena. So the reason why I have her in the C tier is because she is just super hard to build and is very hard to make it work. She's very hard to build because you need a ton of damage, you need a ton of speed, and if you put her on Guiding Light, you need to compensate for that by putting her on more damage. If you don't put her on Guiding Light, you need to actually win in the first few turns before her passive runs out, because she's very good into counter-attacking teams like Bellion, even Navy Captain Landy, because she can prevent counterattacks. The thing is, she needs to win the battle fast before the Star's Blessing runs out, right? And her damage isn't that great, and honestly, she's very niche, right? She's only good into heavy counter teams, and in World Arena, sure, she can be good as a last pick, but you can only pick her if you're fully dedicated to cleaving, right? So Astromancer Elena, a cleave unit similar to Commander Pavel, except that she's way more niche, so we have her in the C tier. Now, if you are a full-on cleaver and you have Commander Pavel already, then Astromancer Elena is probably A or top of B tier, but in general, I'm going to put her in the C tier. So yeah, just to summarize very quickly, this is going to be it for the Fallen Lands Moonlight Blessing / Selector. Honestly, it's not really supposed to be called Selector, it's like a blessing thing, but everyone's calling it the Selector, so that's what I did too. But basically, Conqueror Lilias, please get her, she's so strong. Like, you see her everywhere in Guild Wars Defense, everywhere in World Arena, everywhere in RTA. Basically, if you don't have her, you're kind of crippling yourself, because you have a chance to get her now, and she's the best unit still. Ever since her release, she's been top 3 Moonlight 5-star, top 3 World Arena pick, top 3 Guild Wars Defense unit, so definitely powerful. And she's also very good in PvE, right? So like I mentioned, Ancient Inheritance, very good to actually be strong there, so you can actually carry your guild. And Hall of Trials, because you definitely need the currency now, because so many exclusive equipments and more to come. And I think Smilegate is making it so that the new exclusive equipments are actually going to have multiple options that are good, instead of like I said before in the past, where there was only like 1 of the 3 that were very good. Now we have like 2 or 3 that are going to be good for every unit. Meteor Kawerik, guys, definitely the best second option in my opinion, because yeah, extremely good cleanser for PvP, and he does a ton of damage, and he has CR pushing, and he has a barrier, and he has decreased attack and attack buff. Basically has everything you want in a cleanser while being super tanky. So yeah, definitely a unit you want. Now for the B tier units, honestly, any of these units are good for you to choose. I have Conqueror Lilias and Meteor Kawerik, so I'm probably going to choose like one of the units I don't have, which is probably Death Dealer Ray, who I really wanted. But in general, all of these units are going to be decent options. I personally would lean more towards Death Dealer Ray and Sylvan Sage Vivian. I think Death Dealer Ray is very good for control styles, and Sylvan Sage Vivian is a very solid AoE damage dealer until Expector Tenebrae and stuff like that. Commander Pavel, right, cleave only unit. If you're a cleaver, go for him for sure. And Remnant Violet, very unreliable, but if you do have some good luck, then you can use him very well, but very luck reliant, like I said, and gets countered by a lot of units, right? Like Conqueror Lilias destroys him because her S3 strips evasion, and then you have Angel of Light, which destroys him. You have Zahhak, which everyone has now because Savior Aiden's running everywhere. Basically everything that counters Aiden counters Remnant Violet, but like even harder. So not really a reason to use him, because everyone has the Aiden counters, because Savior Aiden has been everywhere since her release, because she's so good, and she still is used in a lot of areas of content still, right, for PvP. So because of that, everyone's already prepared to counter evasion, and yeah, Remnant Violet gets countered super hard. And he's also not as good as Aiden, because I forgot to mention, his evasion is a buff, so if it gets stripped, you're already down the evasion. Whereas Savior Aiden, right, her evasion's innate, it's not in a buff. So what actually happens is even against like Conqueror Lilias and Angel of Light, she can still dodge, whereas Remnant Violet can't. So yeah, you have to keep that in mind. And then C tier Astromancer Elena used to counter, which is funny, in cleave. That is very niche, and cleave is kind of hard to pull off unless you have insane gear and have like pretty much all the cleave units, because if you're missing a few cleave units, you'll find that it's very hard to actually pull off a consistent cleave draft in every World Arena or RTA game. But if you do, then she's a good choice if you guys are looking for her specifically, which is going to be the case for a lot of late game cleave players. Then Astromancer Elena will be a good choice for you. But if you haven't been waiting for her banner or haven't been waiting for her in the coin shop specifically, you probably won't find her that useful. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video though, guys. Hope you guys found this helpful. I'll be doing another video like this for the RGB 5-star selector coming from the anniversary, and also for the 5-star artifact selector as well. And then we also have another Moonlight selector coming supposedly next year. So we'll see about that for an announcement, and then I'll probably make a video on that as well. So yeah, that being said, hope you guys found this video helpful. And as always, if you guys want to see more tier lists like this, I know this was a little late, I've been kind of busy lately. I will be releasing these on this channel pretty consistently. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the week, and I'll see you guys next video.